Hello, and welcome to Writer's Workshop. Today, we are going to continue looking at narrative writing, and we're going to specifically look at how we organize our narrative essays. So, we already know that the purpose of a narrative is to tell a made up story. And usually, these stories are going to be funny or action packed, but they always have to include a beginning, a middle, and an end. We have to develop the characters, the setting, and the plot. And we have to make sure that the plot has a main problem that's going to be solved at the end of the story. And of course, every good narrative has some good time-ordered words that tell us when things happen in the story in sequence. Now, we started talking a little bit about the writing process. And yesterday, we started with the pre-writing. And pre-writing is when we think about what topics we have to talk about, we narrow the topic, and then we start planning it out. Well, yesterday we already got to plan out some topic ideas, but today we're really going to be planning on how we organize our writing. Now later we will get into drafting, revising, editing, and publishing, but for today and for the next few lessons, we're still going to focus just on pre-writing because this is the most important part of the writing process. As I said, we already did some brainstorming and we already came up with a list of ideas that we can use if we were given a prompt. But today we are going to be focusing on the trait of organization, and we're going to learn how we can organize a narrative not only as a single paragraph, but as 3 separate paragraphs. So I always think about a narrative and I kind of think of the way that I organize it would be kind of like how you feel when you ride a roller coaster. You know, when you ride a roller coaster and you get on and it's kind of slow to begin, you're just kind of getting comfortable. And then you start going up that hill. And as you start going up that hill, man, you're starting to feel anticipation and you're getting excited because you know once you get to the top, the main part of the ride is about to happen. And then you fall. And all of a sudden, you start to slow down and the ride ends. That's what you want your reader to feel when they read your narrative writing. So when we think about this and how this roller coaster relates to your narratives, at the beginning, when you're just starting and you're kind of getting comfortable, that's kind of like what you want your readers to feel. You want to introduce them to your characters, to your setting, and to your problem so that they could just start feeling comfortable as they're taking this ride with you. After that, you can start developing the characters and the events. What this means is you're going to give them a little bit more information about the characters, or you're going to give them more information about what events are going to happen. Then you want to increase the suspense and to let them know that something important or something crazy or some big problem is going to occur. And then, dun, 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 it happens. This is called the climax, or the main part of your plot. And this is where that problem happens, or some type of emotion happens, or some big, huge thing in your story is going to occur. From there, we need to start slowing down, coming down that hill, and then you're going to tell them, well, since there was a problem or a climax, we have to have a resolution. We have to be able to solve the problem that occurred. Now, before, when you would go to write in 2nd grade or 1st grade, your teachers probably asked you to write in a paragraph. And of course, we know a paragraph is just a group of sentences that talk about one main topic. Okay? And that's fine. We could do that. But we did that in 2nd grade. Now, what you did was you create a topic sentence that introduced the reader to what you were talking about. Then maybe you would give 2 to 3 sentences that would give some details and support. And then finally, you would give some kind of closing sentence that would let the reader know that you were coming to an end with your paragraph. And it looked good. That's fine. But we're not 2nd graders anymore. Now we're 3rd graders. And rather than giving just one simple paragraph, we're going to take our narratives and we're going to break them into 3 paragraphs. And the way that we're going to break this down now is rather than just having one introduction sentence, we're going to have what's called an introduction paragraph. This introduction paragraph is going to be a few sentences long, and it's going to introduce your character or introduce the reader to who your characters are in the story, what the setting is, remember where and when it's taking place, and then we're going to kind of introduce them a little bit to the situation of the plot. And so this is all in your introduction. And as you can see, if you even talk about those three things, character, setting, and plot, you have about 3 sentences right there. That's your introduction paragraph. Next is all the good stuff, all the stuff in between these buns. That's what we really like. That's the body paragraph. And in this body paragraph, this is where we're going to find most of the information for your narrative. This is where we're really going to develop that beginning, middle, and even the end portion of your story. So we want to develop the characters and the events. Give me some information about who these characters really are and what were they doing? What happened first, next, and last? And of course, we have to have that dun, 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 that main problem or that climax in the body paragraph. You'll even add a little bit of the solution in that body paragraph. Then finally, you're going to have a conclusion paragraph. So usually your conclusion paragraph is a couple sentences long, and it kind of reflects back on how you solved the problem and what you learned or what the characters learned in this narrative story. So, like I said, we don't go into just draft. We don't start writing right away. Instead, we're going to use a graphic organizer to kind of put our thoughts together first. And when we do fill out a graphic organizer, you're not even going to put complete sentences. You're just going to write little statements to help you remember what you want to include. So remember again, in the introduction, we want to include information about your characters, setting, and a little bit about the plot or the situation. This is one paragraph when you go to write. Then everything in the green here would be your next paragraph. And remember, this is the body. This is where you're going to talk about what happens in the beginning, the middle, and the end. And when we first set up the beginning, I like to call this the setup. And you're first going to explain what happened first or how it all began. Then what happened in the middle. Usually in the middle is where we're going to find the mix-up. The mix-up explains, well, what events led to the main problem. And then, of course, we have to tell them, what is that main problem? What is that climax? And so you're going to talk about that right here in the mix-up. And then the last part of our body paragraph is the fix-up. So this is what happens last in your story. Explain how was the problem solved, or what happened and what happened after the problem occurred. Finally, we start a new paragraph, and the last paragraph is going to be this conclusion paragraph. Now, I call this the lookup. And the reason why is because it's kind of like when you see someone and they kind of look up at the sky like, oh, and they reflect back on something. Well, this is what your characters would be doing. They would be looking up and thinking, what did I learn from this experience? And you're gonna include this in your conclusion. And your conclusion, again, is usually a couple sentences long. So here's an example of a 3-paragraph narrative writing piece. This was from a student, and it's really good, but I wanted to read it to you, and let's see if it has all the parts that we need in a narrative writing. So like every good writing, we have to have a title. This is titled The Dino Scare Exhibit. Here's your introduction paragraph. Here's your body paragraph. And then the last part here is your conclusion paragraph. Let's take a look. Last Friday, I went with my family to the Natural History Museum. My dad, mom, sister, and I woke up and got ready early in the morning so that we could take the train downtown. When we got off, it was pouring rain, but I didn't even care because I was so excited to be there. When we first arrived, we met our museum tour guide, Mr. Smith. He took us to the mummy exhibit where I got to watch a video and then see a real mummy. Next, we went to the hidden tomb room where I had to follow clues to get through a pyramid maze. It was super fun. Plus, I was the first one to find the hidden tomb. Next, Mr. Smith led us to the dinosaur exhibit. I knew that the dinosaurs were only pretend, but deep down I was actually nervous. Just as I was lost in thought about how crazy it would be to come face to face with a real dinosaur, one of the pretend dinosaurs on the wall made a loud, scary, roaring noise. I screamed at the top of my lungs and jumped about 3 feet in the air. Everyone around us turned and stared at me. I could feel my face getting hot from embarrassment. And then it was then that my family started to crack up laughing, which made me laugh as well. Even Mr. Smith patted me on the back and told me it wasn't the first time this had happened. We ended up seeing many other amazingly cool things that day at the museum. Even though I had an embarrassing moment, I would definitely go back to visit the museum and the Dino Scare exhibit again. So, reflecting back, this story did actually introduce us to the characters, the setting, and a little bit of what the situation or the problem was going to be. Then the story went in to develop the characters, but more importantly, the events a little bit more, where it started talking about, going into the mummy room and then the tomb room. And then it started getting into the dinosaurs and it started increasing the suspense, where it says like, oh, I was a little bit nervous. And then dun, 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 the main climax or the problem, the dinosaur roars. And the kids, or the narrator, jumps and screams. Well, after that, they all start laughing. And this would be kind of like the falling experience. And the resolution, or how they solved it, was they kind of just all laughed and said, hey, it's happened before. And so then when we look at the graphic organizer, this reader first filled this out. And they developed their characters, the setting, and the situation before they went and wrote anything. Then they also thought about, well, how am I going to set this up? What's the very first thing I want to talk about? Then how did I get into the mix-up and the problem? And finally, how did we fix the problem? And so this author, again, just jotted down some ideas, not complete sentences, just said, well, what is the main things in the setup, the mix-up, and the fix-up? And then finally, they did their lookup in the conclusion and thought about, okay, what was learned? And it says they were scared and embarrassed, but they would go back and do it again. So for your activity today, we're going to kind of focus more just on this graphic organizer and the pieces of an organization or narrative organization. So our narrative writing piece. And for your activity, I'm going to actually go out of here and show you. When you go to do your assignment today, you're going to see it's going to look like this. You have your graphic organizer here, and it has the 3 main parts: your introduction paragraph, your body paragraph, and your conclusion paragraph. But we're missing what goes in each one of these. And so the directions say you're going to drag and drop each of these gray parts of a narrative description boxes to the correct place within the graphic organizer. So you're going to read each one of these boxes, and you're going to drag it and say, where does this one go? So, the lookup, where they discuss what is learned from the experience. Would you take that and drag that to the introduction, to one of the body sections, or into the conclusion? And wherever you decide, you're going to take it and drag it. And then you're going to go to your next one. Maybe you're going to talk here. Oh, the setup. The setup explains what happens first. Oh, I think I know where that goes. And you're going to take it and you're going to drag it to the right spot in which you think it belongs. Okay? And so you're going to do that for each one of these to show that you know what belongs in a narrative 3-paragraph essay, and in which section does it belong? In the introduction, the body, or the conclusion? So again, just take, drag, and drop it. And when you're done, make sure to turn it in. Let's go be writers.